Welcome everybody, I'm Craig Wortman. We'll give you just a second to join. I'm super excited to be with you today for an Instagram Live session, yet another. Hello, Gong. Glad you are here. Hey, Tom. Thanks for joining. All right. Abhishek joined. Hello, waving back to you. Todd, not Todd. All right. Looks like Eric, my friend Eric is in. Beautiful. Kyle. All right, we're going to give you a few more seconds and then we are going to roll. So glad. Hey, Jeffrey. So glad you're here. Gong, thanks for the thumbs up. Hello, everybody. Hey, Gus. All right, we're getting some energy here. This is good. All right. Hey, Alpesh, how are you? Good to see you again. All right. Alex Marie, Colette, I see you. You're joining again from last week. I love it. Thank you for the thumbs up, Alpesh. Okay, you all, let's get started and people will come in as they come in. Hey, Jeremy, good to see you. Hey, you all, thanks for joining. Welcome. I'm Craig Wortman, of course. I'm so glad you're joining me today for yet another Instagram Live session. I hope this finds you all well and safe and sound. That's always the first thing that has to be said. The purpose of today's live session is to talk about standing out. And what I hope we gained from this quick chat that we're going to have are some tips and techniques for you around building a communications toolkit that allows you to stand out and break through in all of the work as you go about your day in the virtual world and in the physical world. How does that sound? That's our purpose benefit check. I hope that sounds good. Now look, as we sprint through this chat together, this very short time together, please use the comment feature today to ask questions, make comments, give feedback, of course, and I'll pay attention to that as we go through so my special guest and I can answer some questions before we wrap up. In order to avoid distractions, though, I'm gonna try to respond to you all to comments towards the end in a little quick Q&A portion that we've reserved after my quick interview with our awesome special guest. As always, our backup plan, if everything goes haywire here on the internet, is to have you ask some questions through direct message, and I will try to post some videos in response to those questions. So that's our backup plan. This week's session is a special one because in a few minutes I'm going to be introducing to a very special guest. She will help me unpack some of what we know about building a communications toolkit and allowing ourselves to stand out, and she's going to show us and walk us through how she used a tool or two to just secure a big win in her life. So it's quite exciting. So let's get to it. One of the MBA courses that I teach is called Selling Yourself and Your Ideas. And its mission is to help my students show up, stand out, and break through in every situation they're in. And the way we do this in the course and the way we do this in life, of course, is to build what we call a communications dossier. And it's a toolkit. And it helps us become a great communicator no matter the situation in which we find ourselves. And there's been a lot of interest from our audiences in using this time right now to build out our toolkits and really do some deep thinking about it. And look, I think that's fantastic. And I salute all of you who've been contacting me about this. So then the question becomes, okay, well, what's in a communications toolkit? What's in this thing that we call at Kellogg a dossier? A lot, actually. First, think of all the different situations that you're in where you would materially, positively impact your outcomes if you stood out as a great communicator. And I don't know that this is a question we ask a lot, which is just strange. So think about it. Interviewing for a job, performance reviews, running a meeting at work or for work, asking your boss for a raise, having a difficult conversation with someone, networking, presenting, or even running a virtual meeting, doing an Instagram Live, or even showing up at a virtual happy hour or event. Folks, these are just a handful of situations in which we find ourselves all the time. And look, I know right now this is a weird situation that we're all in, and some of these situations have of course, been modified, but I've been arguing for some time now that this situation we're in calls for it even more for us to be, it's more critical for us to be great communicators. Knowing how to calibrate your communications, knowing how to show up and stand out with energy, with precision, with insight. These are critical situations right now. And if we're in those situations, then the question becomes, what tools do we need? Well, just like a master carpenter has all kinds of specialized tools in his or her toolbox, so should we. And so when we're, for instance, I'm just going to run back through that list. When we're interviewing for a job, you need to be a great storyteller, helping people understand why and how you're qualified, what sets you apart when you're interviewing. When you need to do what my friend Professor McSpaden and I call turning small talk into big talk, being bigger, bolder with your questions, asking impact questions, and thereby deepening the conversation, making it bigger. If you're asking for a raise at work, you need to articulate a point of view that gets you noticed. If you're networking, and I realize the nature of networking has changed fundamentally in this time that we're in, and this applies there too. But if you're networking, you need to be able to quickly and efficiently get into and out of conversations. And if you're running a meeting or giving a presentation, you need to be able to run your show with discipline, so you're delivering just what people need when they need it. These are just a handful of some of the tools that we all need in our toolkit. And it's what I've built an MBA course around, what Professor McSpaden and I talk about all the time, about building a larger and larger dossier or toolkit to help us stand out as great communicators. So let's look at some of these in action. My friend, I want to introduce in a second. Give me a second to just bring her into the conversation. And live here in a second with her. Give it 1 sec and we will have my special guest joining us. And there she is.
How's it going?
I'm doing great, Genevieve. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well, thanks. I'm excited.
Fantastic. Well, Instagram Live people, my friends and neighbors, I would like to introduce you to the wonderful Genevieve McSpaden, my former student, now my friend, who is joining us. And we just went through this great quarter together in our MBA class in downtown Chicago, where we were all together until the last night, which we had to do virtually. Right. And we spent a quarter, Genevieve and I, and about a whole bunch more Kellogg students, about 70 others, building a substantive communications dossier. And Genevieve took her toolkit and proceeded to do some amazing work and secure for herself an amazing role in a company. And when Genevieve, when you shared this success with me, I was so amazed and just psyched for you. And I wanted to bring you to our audience to share some of your wisdom and some of what you've learned and some of the tactical moves that you made. So welcome. And first of all, are you well? Are you safe and sound?
Yep, I'm doing fine. Just like everyone else, trying to figure out how I'm going to work from home and getting myself all set up. So yeah, thanks for asking.
we all are, my friend. So okay, so we just have a short time together, and I'm going to run through, Genevieve, just a few questions. And my first one is this: I just spent a few minutes talking about a communications dossier or toolkit. How did you think about this? Like, how did you think about your own Genevieve communications toolkit?
Yeah, absolutely. I think. So for me, the first thing was realizing that I would have to kind of shift my mindset from how do I present myself in person versus how do I present myself virtually, right? We're all living in a different world. So just being really mindful of that right up front. And one of the first things that I realized was that kind of every touch point that you have is now just as important, right? Before, especially when you're recruiting or you're looking for a job, I mean, your cover letter might just be enticing enough to be able to get that in-person interaction. And that's really where you make that connection versus now, every single one, you really want to keep conveying the same message. Hey, this is who I am. This is why I would be really good in the role. And so, again, being more mindful about that. So even with the cover letter, right, making sure it was crisp, to the point. These people don't have a lot of time these days. Everyone's really busy. Really getting the message across, but making sure that kind of my personal style came through as well. in that. And kind of, it was a great prompt when you mentioned stories earlier. So something that, you know, Craig teaches in his class is something about a story matrix, right? So thinking about different situations that you're placed in, or it'd be really nice to have a story to tell. So it could be a success story, a failure story, a story where maybe your team was a hero, you guys saved the day for your company, or, you know, your team at school, for instance, did really well. Just kind of thinking through some of those stories. And so what I wanted to do, again, I have a background in engineering. I wanted to pivot to a business role. Awesome. And so being able to kind of draw a parallel for these, you know, the interviewer, to help them understand why something, you know, hey, yes, it was in engineering, but how would I be able to translate this into a business role? So thinking more about those types of stories to kind of help the interviewer out a little bit. Another story, which I realized would be kind of really important to think about and really make sure I had down pat, was a story where I was successful in an uncertain situation or an ambiguous situation, which really started to, you know, yeah, as I was thinking through, hey, we all are going through something that we've never been through before. So how have you done with that in the past? And so again, that was something that was really big. And then kind of I guess the last piece was how do I want the interviewer to feel at the end of my interview, right? So right after they, you know, they close down the video call and they're just thinking back at the conversation, how do I want them to think through kind of, hey, how did they, you know, what do they think about this person? Do they think that, you know, I'd be good, a good fit, you know, kind of those sorts of things. And so it became important for me as I went through interviews, right? I got better at it throughout the week, but really kind of summarizing at the end, hey, this is what I hear that you're looking for. This is what I think. Again, these are the top 3 points as to why I think I would be a good pick, and why me. Just kind of ending it like that. And so.
Oh man, this is super helpful, Genevieve. I'm so thankful that you're joining us. So I have sort of 3 different, or you said 3 things that really jump out at me. One is this, I find you said the word on when you talked about cover letter being concise. And I've been finding in the last 3-4 weeks now, I've been using the word precision a lot, because I think in the physical world, right, we can take cues from body language and just the context of the room and all that sort of stuff. I'm in this little cave with my world domination map behind me, and we can take cues from that. But when we're like this, when we're virtual, so much of that goes away. And what I've been saying to people is really be concise or precise in your communication. So I love that. You know better than anybody, Genevieve, that my favorite subject of all time is storytelling. So I won't do a half-hour diatribe on that. But suffice it to say that you just in a few quick minutes, you bubbled up some really interesting, what I would call categories or types of stories that we should everybody on this live session should be getting really good at, myself included, especially in this time. And then combine that with the first thing, make your stories. Whereas a physical environment around a conference room, I might take a little bit more liberties with my stories and tell a little bit longer story. Here we got to be super tight. And then, and again, Genevieve, you know this as well as anybody from spending time in my classroom, but this question you asked is so important right now at the end, which is, what feeling do I want to leave? What do I want them when they end this Instagram Live, when they end this interview, what feeling do I want to leave with them? And that makes a huge difference. It's funny, you and I didn't talk about this, but one of the things I said as we joined this session today is, you know, knowing when you're a standout communicator, and when you've got this toolkit, you can calibrate your approach and you can know how to show up with energy, insight, and precision. And I think you just mentioned those 3 things in a different way. And I think if this session is about one thing, it's about how, you know, you were able in your story that you played back both in email and then on a phone call with me, you were able to do those 3 things. And last thought, and then I have another question for you.
Yeah.
I think many times, if most of us, myself included, come to this kind of conversation and we go, okay, interviewing for a new role, this woman's making a huge pivot from engineering to business and marketing and all these other things.
Right.
Wow, that's a huge pivot. She's going to have to be really smart and insightful. And the answer is, of course, right? But in this time, in this world we live in now, you got to be energetic. You've got to infuse positive energy, and you got to be super precise. So I love that jumps out. So a couple other really quick questions, and we'll take a couple questions
Yeah.
from our group here. How did you go about this search? Like how did you think through the process?
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, I'd wanted to make this switch for a few months, so it honestly ended up being great timing that I took your class on selling yourself and your ideas.
Thank you for that.
But I think especially in this uncertain time, right, leveraging your network is huge, or having them leverage their network as well is big. And so, that's kind of how I started understanding the types of roles that I might want was reaching out to my network. Hey, if I want to go into marketing, what type of marketing role might I want? What might make sense to me? These are my strengths. How might I find a role where I can leverage my strengths just enough where I'm making an impact, but I'm still learning enough that it's really beneficial to me and will help me grow in the future. So that was kind of how I was thinking about this search and the types of jobs. And what I find interesting about the time that we're in right now is that these jobs that are posted are really crucial jobs. They're going
Yeah.
to be posted only for a couple of days. So you really have to have done that pre-search, talking to your network, making sure you understand what kind of role you want, because when it's posted, you've got to act on it right away. If you think about it and you sit on it for too long, it might, it might already get filled. And so for me, it was just really looking at jobs as they were posted and kind of checking it diligently every day, because it changed every day. The landscape of what was available online changed. So those are some of the things that I thought of when I was doing my search there.
Yeah, no, that's super helpful. And I'm going to make one reminder, and then I'm going to ask you my last question, and you partially answered it already. My comment here is, folks, I'm seeing a whole bunch of activity. This is great. Please post your questions for Genevieve and me in the comment section. And if we don't have a ton, we'll pick off a couple. If we don't have a ton, we'll start to close. But Genevieve, the last is, again, you gave us some insights already, but what advice would you have for all of us out there if you're looking to make a pivot, if you're looking for a new role? What advice do you have for people starting this, already, intimidating process, but in a time like this?
Yeah, I think, again, the biggest piece, as I kind of already mentioned, is the fact that it's all going to be virtual. And so if you've never done a one-on-one meeting with someone in a professional setting over video, I think it's really important to maybe have a practice session to see what kind of, hey, what do I portray? Who am I over video? Because it could be very different than how you are portrayed in person. And so even just being mindful of, hey, how do I come off over video is really important. And knowing, like, for me, I wanted to be genuine and make sure that who I am in person is being conveyed over video. And so just having that at the back of my mind and making sure that I could kind of almost overemphasize some of those characteristics so that they made, they really came through over video was really big. So that would be kind of advice for
that is great advice. What's that last part?
No, just again, to overemphasize, as we said, kind of thinking about ambiguous stories, or ambiguous situations that you were in, and really practicing those stories to make sure that the interviewer can really understand the context. They can really put themselves in your shoes, because I think the more that you can help them go along kind of the emotions that you were feeling, like, hey, this was a really, weird time that we were in, and having them walk through the whole thing with you will really get the point across even more. And I don't know, there's just this, I don't know if it's advice, but I think there's probably a different way where people can shift their mindset about, if you're looking for a job right now, this isn't, it's not ideal, but I think it's also a unique time to be looking for something. And I think that what has, these people who've done this sort of job over, for years, they're tried and true, that may not necessarily be what the company needs right now. We're all going through, these uncertain times. It's uncharted territory. We really don't know what will work and what will not work. And so I think it is a unique opportunity, right, at Kellogg, especially we're being developed to be these brave leaders. And so this is the time to go out and try something different and be, I think companies are looking for something different that they haven't seen before. What's worked before might not necessarily work moving forward. So it might be a cool opportunity for people to try for some of those stretch positions. So
I love it. And I love the last comment just as you're wrapping up, which says, well said. Jay Brongs, well said to that. I totally agree. So Genevieve, let's tackle just one last thing.
Sure.
And I was scrolling through, and I don't know if I saw this question here, or I think I know I got this question live in a phone call I had with a friend of mine yesterday. And I've been tackling the same question over the last couple of weeks. And it's this, and I'll pose an answer, Genevieve, and then jump in if you want to. But the question is, okay, so in this virtual world, and when we're networking or we're doing, Genevieve, what you just shared with us when we're starting this process, like you still have to get out there. You got to put yourself out there. You got to seek these things. They're going to go up and down really fast. When people are super busy and stressed and they're dealing with all this stuff, how do we break through that noise and secure a first meeting? Like, Genevieve, if I were coming after you and you didn't know me, and I was reaching through email to try to get you to respond to me and spend 5 minutes to talk to me about a potential new role on your team, how would I do that? One of the answers that I've given, and I don't know if it's the perfect answer, but it's one I've talked about a lot over the last few weeks and would love your reaction to, is, and I have a name for it, it's called make offers. And what I mean by that is, if I'm reaching out to you, of course, I'm asking for something. I'm saying, hey, Genevieve, would you spend 5 minutes with me, or 10 minutes? And by the way, folks, no more than that in this environment. Right. If she likes you or he likes you, they'll spend more time, but make your ask really small. But then to follow that ask with something, and I this is where I get frustrated, because I don't know exactly what it is, but it's some sort of an offer. It's like, hey, Genevieve, you know, in that 5 or 10 minutes, I will also bring to the conversation an insight I had around your marketing positioning, or I will bring to the conversation a quick 3-sentence review of a great book I just read that I think you would really enjoy. Like, it doesn't have to be a profound, you know, I don't have to be offering you $10,000. It just has to be something that I'm bringing to the party to give you another reason to network or to connect with me. Do you have a reaction to that? I've been talking about that a lot.
I think that's a great point. I think especially in this time where everyone's just trying to figure out how to live in this new norm for everyone, I think that's a really good, even if you read an article that really resonated with you and you think that someone else might enjoy reading or get something out of, I think that's a really good point that you've made. It's a great idea.
Well, it's a thought, and I would ask everybody in the audience to consider it. Let's take one more question that we got in the comments just now. Sure. And this person says, and forgive me, I can't make out your name from the code, from the Instagram handle, but this person says, you said that you had to adjust your approach over virtual interviews. Yes. What did you most notice needed to change from when you started the process?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And so I think the first thing that I noticed, so typically when I'm in person with someone, I mean, I'm a pretty kind of direct. I will ask a question if I have it. I'm not.
Love that.
Right. And I think over video, I'm always kind of I just want to make sure that I'm not talking over someone, and it's harder to tell that someone's about to say something. So I think that was the biggest thing for me, was just making sure that I still ask those questions, even though it makes me feel maybe a little bit more uncomfortable over video. So again, that was one big thing. Also, just kind of when you're going through interviews, right? What are you wearing even? That was something else that was really big, because you really only got this little space to work with. You don't want to be too distracting, but you still want to make sure that, you know, your personal kind of brand or who you are kind of shines through as well. And again, right, you've only got this small space. So those are just some of the smaller things that I would think through. But yeah, even just kind of the stories that you share, just, you know, you can't really make eye contact that well anymore. It's just
hard, right?
Very different.
We're all relearning that.
Right.
Well, again, Genevieve, what I love about the theme that runs through all of your comments and answers and stories is sort of, and you use this term, like memorable. You know, tell your stories so you're memorable or distinctive. And what we say at Kellogg is stand out. So that person gets off that interview, gets off that virtual Zoom, and all those other people that person's talked to are here, and you're here. I mean, that just makes such a difference. Well, listen, we gotta wrap. It has been a pleasure to have you share your wisdom with us. I will, and again, this will be familiar to you, Genevieve. I'm going to wrap up with the 6 disciplines of closing an impact meeting. We can use those just as well, I think, on Instagram Live. You'll all be the judge of this. But the discipline number 1 is to summarize. We talked about really quickly what makes up a communications dossier or toolkit, and then obviously chatted with Genevieve about her use of some of those critical tools and gained some insights about how we might build one for ourselves. Discipline number 2, we call this a check. And remember 20 minutes ago, I said to you, the purpose of this session, this live session today, is to talk about standing out and to talk about some tips and techniques for building our own communications toolkit. And so I hope that this meeting delivered for you. The check goes hand in glove with the third discipline, which is feedback. And the way we'll do feedback, asking for feedback at the close of any meeting, client or otherwise, is that I will ask you to either chat your feedback in the comments, or more appropriately, I think, and more useful to me, speaking selfishly, is if you would direct message me through Insta, just so I can reflect on your feedback to try to make these better. That's really what this is all about. And that is the fourth discipline of closing a meeting, which is action items. My action items are to read your feedback, talk to Genevieve, talk to some of you online, and figure out whether what we can learn from this to make it even better. The fifth discipline is scheduling the next meeting. I won't do that, but we will almost certainly host more Instagram live sessions if you all find this valuable. And then the sixth and final discipline, of course, is to say thank you. I am really grateful to all of you. I hope you can tell we have a lot of fun doing these. Genevieve, once again, thank you, my friend, for spending time both preparing and delivering for us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was very fun.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Remember, you all, sales is about helping people make progress in their lives. I hope that you are all stay safe, keep making good decisions. If you want more information, you can find us obviously on our salesengine.com website. Be well, everybody. Hope to see you in another live session soon. Take care.